on today's show, we break down a ton of reports from NFL insiders around the latest trade rumors. Reminder, NFL trade deadline right after week 9, after the Texans face the Broncos. It is November 4th. So we have up until then for the Texans to either trade somebody away or trade for another player to bring in. This is the only question I'm going to ask you on this show. Do the Texans need to make a trade? Let me know yes or no, because we're going to break down a ton of reports. There's been people saying the Texans are going to be sellers and sell some of their guys off. They're saying the Texans are going to be buyers and make a couple moves as well. Nick Caserio, known for being a guy to make a ton of moves, but in-season trades, hasn't done a ton of that throughout his tenure with the Houston Texans. More of an off-season guy. So let me know. Do you think the Texans need to make a trade? Give me a yes or give me a no. First up, let's look at the Athletics' Dianna Russini on what she said around the Houston Texans. Despite Texans GM Nick Caserio's reputation for aggressively making trades, teams haven't received calls from Houston looking to add. At least not yet. Very interesting report from Russini. She actually put out a whole report with everything that she's been hearing around different NFL teams. And for the Houston Texans, obviously, she was mentioning that she hasn't heard that they've looked to make any moves. But she did say looking to add. She didn't say that the Texans haven't shopped any of their players. So that's an interesting little tidbit in that Dianna Russini report if you're, I guess, trying to read in between the lines a little bit there. Here's also from that Dianna Russini article. She said the Titans fire sale. Basically everybody besides Cam Ward and Jeffrey Simmons up for grabs. Maybe a Kevin Zeitler for the Houston Texans, the right guard. I wanted the Texans to sign him in free agency this offseason, but from Russini's report, basically everybody is up for sale for the Tennessee Titans. The Dallas Cowboys, she said they are scouring the NFL looking for defensive help. Might be in play with your Houston Texans because there's a couple guys that were mentioned as trade pieces that the Texans could look to sell off to other teams, and a couple guys on the defense that the Dallas Cowboys could look to add if they want to take a quick trip up I-45. Olave with the New Orleans Saints. He's been a part of a ton of trade discussions so far, but she actually said she's been hearing that he's working on an extension with the New Orleans Saints. They're not looking to shop him. They're looking to keep him in New Orleans. A very interesting report there from Dianna because everybody's been saying, Chris Olave, he's going to be traded for a third, traded for a fourth, traded for a second-round pick. Doesn't look like he's going to be traded at all, according to this article. Patriots want another running back, and funny enough, I'm actually going to show you here in just a little bit. ESPN put a trade together with the Houston Texans and the New England Patriots doing just that. And she said the Raiders are looking to add at defensive line, even though a lot of people are thinking the Raiders are going to be major sellers at the trade deadline. She's saying that Raiders are looking to add some defensive line help. So what does that leave with Nick Caserio? What will he do as we near the trade deadline? Because, as I mentioned, people are saying, the Texans are 2-4. They're definitely going to be sellers at the deadline. But also, the AFC is kind of weak. It's kind of wide open to get a wild card spot. So the Texans could look to add pieces to hopefully get on the right track at some point and get to winning and get a playoff spot in this year's AFC race. That leads me to the ESPN reports. The Texans have been heavily linked to buying and selling via the latest ESPN trade article that was put out. So let's take a look at some of the guys that possibly the Texans could add, because they mentioned a couple guys that the Texans, could be in on, and they mentioned a couple guys that the Texans could sell on. Before that, ESPN actually released an article maybe 2 weeks ago, and I mentioned the Patriots from Dianna Russini's report looking for running back help. This is the trade that ESPN put out a week and a half ago. I put it on my social media. The Texans received Kyle Duggar, safety, and the Patriots received Dameon Pierce at running back. In my opinion, a kind of win-win trade. You get rid of a running back who has been a healthy and active for you for half the season. And even when he is active, he doesn't do anything. And Kyle Duggar, after a good start to his, kind of the same player, different positions. Kyle Duggar had a good start to his career, was looking to have a contract extension, and has fallen off in New England since they've hired Mike Vrabel. Maybe this is a fresh start for both these guys. The Patriots, they drafted Travion Henderson early on in this draft, I believe in the second round, and he's been a basically no-show throughout the first start of their season. They're going more to Ramondre Stevenson. So this was the ESPN trade idea that they put together earlier, maybe a couple weeks ago. I wouldn't mind that at all. Also, coming up, the latest ESPN trade rumors. I also break down a couple more guys that the Texans could look to add and sell off as we near the trade deadline. Before we get into all that, quick word from our sponsor over at Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. It's super simple. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 players. Stat projections. If you get your picks right, you can cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money today. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 40 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. And if you're looking at, Jeremy, what should I do? What kind of lineup should I put together? This is my lineup for this week. I'm going a stack, a new feature that Prize Picks offers where you can do multiple projections for the same player. CJ Stroud, I'm going more on the pass yards, less on the rush yards. Jaylen had a great game in Week 7. I think he can do it this week as well. Give me the more on his rushing and receiving touchdowns at 0.5. And then Mac Jones, the Texans defense, was kind of sliced and diced in Week 7. I think they'll do much better at limiting the big plays. So Mac Jones, 34.5 longest completion. Give me the less on that. You can use my picks or make your own lineup with our friends over at Prize Picks today. It's the best place to win cash while watching sports. Join millions of users and sign up today. Download the app. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right. Now let's look at their most recent article, ESPN, and who they mentioned the Texans could be in on. They linked the Texans to multiple players. First up, a guy who Texans have been linked to quite a bit, Breece Hall, running back from the Jets. The only problem is I don't know if running back is the biggest need for the Houston Texans right now. I would go O-line. I would go maybe this next guy tight end more than I would go running back. Breece Hall, good player, but maybe you're ready to give up on Nick Chubb. Maybe you don't believe that Woody Marks is going to be a good player or a, every down back for you. But I don't know if I would give up a second, third, or fourth round pick for Breece Hall at this point in the season. Another player that I've actually talked about quite a few times linking to the Houston Texans is Titans tight end Chig Okonkwo. He's played pretty well, and I think if the Texans can add a player like Okonkwo, that could really help you in the long run. Nick Caley, he was a tight end guy before he came to the Houston Texans. And part of the reason why I think his offense might be struggling to start the year is his reliance on tight ends and the fact that the Texans, they don't have any good tight ends. They were working with the assumption that they'd have Brevin Jordan, they'd have Cade Stover. Both those guys injured at the very beginning of the year. Brevin Jordan for the rest of the year. Cade Stover, who knows whenever he's able to come back from that hairline fracture he suffered in Week 1. But I think Chig Okonkwo could definitely be a guy that Nick Caserio should take a look at the tight end spot if the Texans want to add some more firepower to this offense. And they actually listed another running back for the Houston Texans and Browns running back Jerome Ford. Okay, I mean, same thing I said with Breece Hall, right? I think, running back, maybe Jerome Ford, I think, would be a better fit if you could get him for a 6th or 7th round pick rather than trading a, second day pick, a 3rd or 4th rounder for Breece Hall. I'd much rather go for a guy like Jerome Ford, in my opinion, but I don't think running back should be the biggest need for the Houston Texans. They also listed 2 guys that the Texans could trade away, Christian Harris and Christian Kirk, both Christians in this ESPN article. Obviously, I mentioned earlier at, linebacker, Christian Harris might have a few suitors, one of them being the other team in Texas, the Dallas Cowboys. I've seen, trade ideas, this, that, and the other between the Texans and the Cowboys. I think that would be a pretty good fit because the Texans, they obviously have other guys ahead of Christian Harris. They like E.J. Speed more. They like Henry Toe more. I think if, last year of his rookie deal. He's going to walk after this year anyway. If you're able to get anything for him, maybe a 5th or 6th round pick, I think that's a win in my book if you're able to get something for Christian Harris at this point. And then Christian Kirk, you traded for him at the beginning of the offseason from the Jacksonville Jaguars. And, the same problem that he had in Jacksonville, he's having with the Texans right now. He cannot stay on the field. He continuously is injured with that hamstring injury. He missed the first 2 games. And then he missed last week, missed practice on Wednesday. So, if he can't get out on the field, get healthy, I wouldn't mind trading Christian Kirk either. Even though I think he's a good player, can definitely help this team, the best ability is availability. And Christian Kirk, he just doesn't have that. Now, last up, Bleacher Report. They also put out an NFL trade article, and very interesting some of the names that they threw out there. One name that they linked to the Texans was Jackson Powers-Johnson. Now, I've mentioned the Raiders center/guard before, and he was one of the guys who I said, out of everybody that I talk about in this video, if the Texans could trade for one guy and one guy only, my opinion, it would be Jackson Powers-Johnson. The former 2nd-round pick out of Oregon, he's fallen out of grace with this Raiders coaching staff. They went ahead and they're starting Alex Kappa, who I know PFF, they suck right now and their numbers are all out of whack. But last year, Alex Kappa was the worst graded guard by PFF. He was awful. And they're starting him over the former 2nd-round pick in Jackson Powers-Johnson. You're able to trade for anybody in this video. I want it to be JPJ. Add another guard, put him in there at left guard, put him in there at center. Either way, I think this Texans offensive line improves by adding a player of JPJ's, ability, of his standard. And I think this offensive line will improve if you're able to make a move like this. They said the trade, compensation for him would be either a 4th-round pick or a cornerback. We don't really have a lot of corner depth, so a 4th-round pick it is. I would 100% make that move if I'm the Houston Texans. Other guys who not necessarily linked to the Texans but have been linked in the past, Mark Andrews. They put his projected value at a 5th-round pick. And for that, kind of same thing. I'd be down if they're able to figure out the money, make it work out. Adding another good tight end like Mark Andrews, I think would help this Texans offense leaps and bounds. I think Mark Andrews, maybe go a little 2 tight end sets with him and Dalton Schultz. Even though he's a little bit older and the Ravens, they've been bad this year, they're kind of looking to replace him with the younger Isaiah Likely for a 5th-round pick. I would for sure kick the tires on Mark Andrews. And as I mentioned earlier, Breece Hall, they put his projected value at a 3rd-round pick. That's just too rich for my blood. If I'm the Houston Texans, I'm not spending a 3rd-round pick on a running back. I mean, even though he's been good this year. 99 carries, 448 yards for Hall with the New York Jets. I just don't see it. I would much rather get a lineman or a tight end. I think both those positions will more directly impact this Texans offense rather than getting a running back with Breece Hall, because you trade for Breece Hall, you trade a 3rd-round pick for him. The running lanes aren't just going to magically open for Breece Hall. He's not going to have these wide open spaces to run the football. The Texans O-line is still going to have trouble, run blocking. So if you trade for a guy like Breece Hall, yes, he's maybe a improvement over Nick Chubb and improvement over Woody Marks, but you still have the same issues that you had prior to trading for Breece Hall. That's all I got for you on today's show, folks. If you want to hit me up on Twitter, you can tag me. You can DM me at Jeremy Chugs. My DMs are open. And if you made it to the end of the video, hey, go ahead and hit that sub button, bringing you daily Texans content all year long. My promise to you is this. Give me 1 week. Hit that subscribe button. If you don't like it, you can unsubscribe. No skin off your back. It's 100% free. Let me prove to you why this is the #1 Texans channel here on YouTube.